Pictures up, quiet please.
Parker? What's on your mind?
I've thought about this all night. Whether what I'm about to do is the right thing or not.
Let me go in and talk to him alone, Dr. Mallory.
I did so only because he was working along lines contrary to the good of mankind.
Well, Rangers, looks as though Agents McKenzie and Hopkins are going to have to get to that hacienda and get there mighty fast.
Crush all opposition. Make the most powerful man in the world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Good Movie Hunting, the podcast where we discuss actors and actresses at their best, their worst, and our favorite moments in film. Today, I have Miss Savannah joining us. Hello, Savannah.
Heyo!
How are you on this lovely
Hello.
evening? Hello for the second time. We had our little preamble talk right before this.
We have to do like a little pregame, you know what I mean? We gotta catch up.
We've got to get all of our fun talks in there. We are going to drop our socials. We have a Facebook page at Good Movie Hunting or at GMH Podcast, Twitter at GMH Pod, Instagram at GMH Podcast. Our email is goodmoviehuntingpod@gmail.com. Our YouTube is Good Movie Hunting Podcast. Thank you everyone for being here and listening to us on this week that we discuss Nicolas Cage. It's a doozy. There was a lot of content on this gentleman.
There's no one like him. There's no one.
There really isn't. It's
There will never be anyone like Nicolas Cage.
It was one of those things where it was like, yeah, we watched the movies and stuff like that, but as I was doing the research on him, I was like, oh my God, like I could just do a whole episode just on him, like on his personal life. Like he has so much going on. There's like a whole section on Wikipedia about like his acting style and how people perceive him and stuff. And there was this one critic who was quoted as saying like that his style is like jazz acting, almost, like, you know what I mean? Like the way he's just all over the place and like unpredictable is like reminiscent of jazz. And I was like, that's actually a interesting explanation. I like that. Because he very much
I just
is.
think of like jazz hands.
Jazz
whenever
hands.
you say that. Like that's all I can picture. It's just like Nicolas Cage doing jazz hands, but like making the classic Nicolas Cage face.
Yes, the face, the meme face. You know,
I love
everyone
that
at
it's
home,
a
you know what
meme.
we mean.
You know what I mean.
You know, you wouldn't be here if you didn't know.
I mean, I guess you know if you know. If you don't, that's your problem, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Now people are going to be like trying to go to sleep at night and they're just going to be picturing Nicolas Cage doing the jazz hands with the face. It's like a sleep paralysis demon.
Yeah. Oh, those are terrifying.
Nicholas Kim Coppola, I think is how you pronounce it. That's his actual last name. Was born January 7th, 1964 in Long Beach, California, to parents August Coppola and Joy Vogelsang. So this makes him 58 years old, and he's a Capricorn, which is... I don't know that I expected that, but, you know, it is what it is. But
What are like the typical character traits of a Capricorn?
stubborn is the big one. Danny is a Capricorn. But it was funny because last week we did Denzel Washington, and Denzel Washington is a Capricorn, and I was like, okay, I see that. Like I saw the parallels between Danny and what I know about Denzel Washington, but I don't really see that so much with Nicolas Cage. Except I guess there are some things in his personal life that I do kind of see like that stubbornness come out. But
Well, I mean, they literally just must go in there with a script and say, can you do this? And he is just so stubborn that he's going to do it.
he's going to try. Yeah.
I don't think that he's ever said no
to anything.
Any script that like his agent has given him.
Yeah. No, and I do have a note in here about that actually. But yeah, it's like anything that you present him with, he's like, well, fuck it. Yeah, I'll try it. You know?
He's like, you don't think I can do it, do you? You don't think I can. He's like a stubborn toddler when you tell them they cannot go up the stairs by themselves or like down the stairs by themselves.
But yeah, so like I said, his real last name is Coppola, and on his father's side, the Coppola family is actually a very famous family in the filmmaking industry. He is Nicholas is the nephew of the very famous director Francis Ford Coppola, if that name rings a bell for you.
I don't know him.
So his dad's side of the family is very Italian, and his mom's side of the family, if you didn't guess by the last name Vogelsang, is she's German and Polish descent. So he was raised Catholic by his parents. He went to Beverly Hills High School. He wanted to act ever since he was a child and went to the UCLA School of Theater, Film, and Television. He says that his inspiration to join the acting world was by James Dean, actually, in the movie Rebel Without a Cause, East of Eden. He decided when he started getting into the acting game, that he wanted to change his last name to Cage so that people wouldn't assume nepotism, because of his famous Coppola family. And
it does happen quite a lot in Hollywood, I think, the nepotism.
Yeah, no,
it's
definitely.
like all these people are like connected in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Well, and it was interesting too, though, because it was like he decided to do the name change so that people wouldn't like have all these assumptions about him, but at the same time, he did admit to like a lot of his starting out roles, like being like he was helped into getting them by his family, So he was like, he still kind of admitted to it a little bit, but I think his point was that, they only helped him get like the little kickstart there at the beginning, but everything after that was all, on him, which I'm sure is to his family's chagrin. So,
Oof.
But yeah, and he said that he decided on the name Cage because of the superhero Luke Cage, which I thought was interesting. I was like, of all superheroes, I mean, Luke Cage is fine, but he's not like the best, in my opinion.
The only thing I can picture is like the Luke Cage from the Daredevil series.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that Marvel like Daredevil series that came out?
Do I remember? I was obsessed.
I mean, we all were, honestly, but like that's the only like Luke Cage I can like picture in my mind.
I know, right? Like I didn't even know about Luke Cage until that. And I guess, Cage does sound like a pretty badass name, so it was probably like a combination of things. And he also tried to say, he was like, oh, and there's this composer I like called John Cage. And I was like, yeah, shut up. You just said that.
He's like, let me just throw this in here so I don't sound like a
child.
Like I'm really, really into
yeah.
these Marvel magazines or whatever. Comic books.
Yeah, them magazines.
I don't know why. I just like... First thing in my mind was magazine.
I mean, yeah.
It's made out of the same paper, okay?
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I gotcha. But yeah, so his first film was a made-for-TV movie in 1981 called The Best of Times. He has 2 children. His first child is named Weston, and Weston was born in December of 1990. And the mother of Weston is an actress named Christina Fulton. And since Weston was born, Weston has grown up into a big boy, and he has given Cage 2 grandchildren born in 2014 and 2016. So old Nick is a grandpa.
Dude, that's freaking weird that he's like a grandfather.
I know, right?
I just thought about that. I was like, wait. I'm like, oh yeah, that's so cute. He has a family. Like, wait, he's a granddad?
I know. He's like sitting these children down on his knee and trying to give them sage advice, and I'm sure Weston is in the background shaking his head.
That same face at them, that Nicolas Cage face, but like, and they're just crying. Like that's all I can think. They're just like,
no, please don't.
They're like, no,
not the face.
Not that one.
It's like their punishment. Like if they do something bad, like they get to FaceTime Grandpa and he does the dreaded face.
Oh my
gosh. So Nicolas Cage's first wife was an actress named Patricia Arquette, and they were married from 1995 to 2001. Oh, let me preface this before I start listing. He is on his 5th marriage right now.
Wow, go him, dude.
He has been
He's
married.
A ladies' man.
I guess so.
He might be a ladies' man with commitment issues, but he's a ladies' man, okay? Like,
I'm sure he's got some interesting stories. I mean, because his second wife, so yeah, his first wife was Patricia Arquette. They were married from 1995 to 2001, but his second wife was singer and songwriter Lisa Presley, who is the daughter of Elvis Presley.
what?
Yeah. I was like,
No.
first of all, I didn't know Elvis had a daughter.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I didn't.
Oh, I was watching some type of like documentary thing. Well, technically my parents were watching it and I just happened to be in the room and I couldn't avoid looking over there at what they were watching. It was some like news thing about Elvis because that new movie had just come out.
Oh yeah.
So then obviously they were like discussing everything and I was like, "Oh, cool. He got him. He had children. That's crazy." Like I guess you don't like hear about his kids as much. You know what I mean? Like you mostly just hear about him.
Yeah, because he's like this larger than life character, so you don't really see too much of the behind the scenes. You just know about him.
We just know about him and his glorious songs.
Yeah. But an interesting thing that I learned too, though, is that as I was doing these notes and I found this out, I was doing the notes at my mom's house and I told her, I was like, "Can you believe he was married to Lisa Presley?" And she was like, "Oh yeah, and she was also married to Michael Jackson." I was like, "What?" I was like, "Well, this chick has led a crazy life. She's been married to Michael Jackson and Nicolas Cage. What a poor woman."
What? Yeah, she must be. Is she still with us?
Is she okay? Does someone need to check on her?
Oh my gosh, she must have gone through it. Just because they're both like very specific characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she likes him wild, I guess.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, so he was married to her from 2002 to 2004, and he has denied it in many interviews, but it really seems to me that they only got married because he was like a huge Elvis Presley fan.
Do you think that he thought that she looked like Elvis? And he was like, "Oh my gosh, it's the female version of my idol."
Ooh, that's a hot take. I like that. I think that's
like,
let's
what
go
if
with
it was
that.
like that type of vibe? I'm kind of leaning towards that now. I don't know.
His third wife was a woman named Alice Kim. They were married from 2004 to 2016, and they had one son together in the October of 2005, and you're going to love this. Their son's name was Kal-El, after Superman.
My sister almost did that.
No. Wait, are we
Yeah.
talking about V? I don't know if
No,
we should say her name.
M.
Really?
When she was taking G home from the hospital, she was like, "I really want to name him Kal-El." And her husband was like, "Absolutely not. He's going to get bullied." And she was like, "I've always wanted to name my son Kal-El."
Oh,
Because we were
okay.
all like
Yeah.
obsessed with Smallville growing
Yeah.
up. Like if
mhm.
you know, you know.
Yeah,
Like
you
Tom
got
only
me into
had
that.
us. He had us by the throats. Okay, I don't know what to say.
it was great. Like, I'm not a Superman fan in general, but Smallville was incredible. Loved it.
Oh, are you kidding? It was the most dramatic thing about my life. It molded me.
You were living vicariously through Kal-El.
But yeah, she seriously was like, I think if her husband would have been on board with it, she would have named him that immediately.
My God, no.
So like, I'm really glad that Nicolas Cage could like do this for society.
His fourth wife was a woman named Erica. It's Koike. I'm gonna say Koike, if I were to guess.
Maybe like Koike.
Koike? Yeah. Okay. That's a good guess.
Know.
They were married in Vegas in 2019, but Nicolas Cage filed for annulment 4 days later.
Wait, annulment based off of what?
But he was just like, I made a mistake. I do not want to be married to her. I imagine that they're pretty lenient on marriages that happen in Vegas, you know? You can just be like, oh, I just want an annulment. Can I not give a reason? They're like, okay, sure. I understand.
They're like, I mean, you could just tell us that you were drunk or high, and we would believe you.
We will accept that.
Like, I would think that they would be able to, like, check a box that says, like, drunk or, like, high out of your mind.
It says that exactly. Not just high. It says high out of your mind.
Definitely.
He is currently married to his fifth wife, Riko Shibata, and they married in 2021, so just this last year. And they are currently expecting his third child, and it's going to be a girl.
Oh, no! Are you serious?
Yep, he's got another baby.
His grandchildren are older than this baby.
It
it's
is
hard to
crazy.
wrap your head around the fact that Nicolas Cage is still procreating to me.
Yeah, I mean, he's 58. Like, bro, you should be done.
Almost got some, like, bomb swimmers, if that's the case.
Apparently.
Honestly.
They just
like,
don't
they're
stop.
Still working. They don't stop, okay?
That is for sure.
Neither does his career, which we will get into.
Unfortunately.
It's bumping.
Yeah, so that should, let's move on to our fun facts then. And the first fact is very interesting. So apparently once an intruder broke into his home only to sit naked at the end of the bed, wearing only Nicolas Cage's leather jacket, and he was eating a fudgesicle.
It's kind of a vibe. I'm not mad at it. There are worse things he could have done naked to Nicolas Cage.
I mean, yeah, you've got a point, but I mean, can you
Also,
imagine?
do you think he had some type of paper towel with this fudge pop?
No, I
like,
imagine.
what if that?
No.
Like, what if it drips on you and then you get cold? Then your manhood is shrinking upwards.
As he was getting into film, he wanted to try and get some more media attention. And so in his movie Vampire's Kiss, which came out in 1988, he chose to eat a cockroach while filming it because he just felt like that was what the people wanted to see, I guess. And
who wants to see that?
I don't know. And he even said that he like picked it because he hates roaches the most. Like, they were going to have him eat something else gross, and he was like, nope, you know what? I'm committed. I will eat a roach. And they were like, please, sir, no one asked you to do this.
Like, no, that was not even an option.
Like, you just went outside of the box and not in a fun way.
This is not Survivor, sir.
And speaking of eating things, he once did mushrooms with his cat. And he says he swore that the cat got them out of the fridge and brought them to him as if asking to try.
I mean, it sounds like something a cat would theoretically be able to do. They're really smart.
Maybe like a cartoon cat. I highly doubt that his cat actually did this. I think that it was just his way of like...
Maybe the naked man snuck in a spy cat. Okay, hear me out. And then the spy cat was controlled by the naked man, and the naked man was like, if I could just get this guy to trip, maybe he'll review my script.
And be friends with me.
And be best friends with me.
Yep, that's it. I mean, that's the only explanation, I think, for this cat being able to open the refrigerator and pick up this bag of mushrooms and bring it over to Nick.
Also, are mushrooms supposed to be kept in the fridge?
I don't know.
Like, I've never done any like recreational type of mushroom eating, so I don't know. So the listeners are gonna have to tell me and educate me on this topic.
Yes,
I need to
please,
know.
everyone, write into our little Q&A for the month and let us know
Or
if
comment
you keep...
on the YouTube channel, just because I'm just curious. I don't know much about that side of life.
He has his burial plans already set up. Don't even worry about it. He has a 9-foot tall pyramid-shaped tomb in the French Quarter of New Orleans with an inscription reading Omnia ab uno, everything from one. Speaking of New Orleans, he purchased, I don't know if you've heard of this before, but he purchased the LaLaurie Mansion. Do you know about that?
What the hell is that?
You said you do or don't?
What is that?
The LaLaurie Mansion is a very famous haunted house in New Orleans. And there was like a lady back in the olden days, and she like kept a bunch of slaves, and
like the lady that would like mutilate them.
Yes, up in like the attic or some shit, and like it was terrible. And then there was like a fire one day, and she just like let them all burn to death in there. And I think she may have also burned to death. Like I think that she was like trying to get down, but none of the like slaves would help her, obviously, because she's a bitch. And yeah, it's a whole thing. But he decided to purchase it.
What a horrible person. Why did he buy it?
Because he claimed that he needed inspiration for a novel, but he never wrote the novel, and the house ended up being foreclosed on 2 years later. So
wait, so he didn't like even like pay for it?
No, and that's in the next note, actually. He is a very big spender, and it has bit him in the butt in a big way. He only just this year has been able to finally pay off like his outstanding debts, and this is why he took so many film roles over the years, was just to pay off like all these debts. Like he did not give a shit about any of these or I say any, a lot of these movies. He was just taking roles left and right because he was like desperate for the money, because he like I just said, all of his houses were like getting foreclosed on and stuff. Like he was like hurting really bad.
He was definitely not spending within his means. He needed to skip the avocado toast.
And my very last fun fact that I have is that he calls his acting style nouveau shamanic, and is quoted in defining it in a New York Times article in 2019 as nothing other than trying to augment your imagination to get to the performance without feeling like you're faking it. So yeah, that's how he perceives his acting, at least. I don't know if anyone else is seeing it that way, but that's certainly what he thinks about himself.
Wow.
And I love that he like created that term for himself too. Like he couldn't just choose one that already existed.
I don't really fit into any of these squares, so I'm just gonna make one up.
I think that's pretty on brand with him. And yeah, that is our fun facts. And now we are going to move on to our first film, which was the movie Pig. And yes, you heard us right. Pig came out in 2021, and it received a 97% by critics and 84% by audience.
How?
Yes, this is a controversial one for me and Savannah, actually. I really loved this movie. I loved it. I thought it was great.
Didn't.
I did.
Oh, yeah.
I certainly did not expect to.
Oh my gosh.
But
No.
it surprised me.
Like, were your expectations really low going in?
Yes. I mean, because you read the description for it. So the description is a truffle hunter who lives alone in the Oregonian wilderness must return to his past in Portland in search of his beloved foraging pig after she is kidnapped. And it has this very serious looking photo of him like as the cover, and I was just like, there's no way this could be good. There's no way I can take this seriously. And
then you fucking did.
And then I fucking did. Yeah, I don't know.
I can't believe you.
It was good. Okay, we'll get
Like,
into
okay,
this.
okay. Like, what did you like about it?
Okay, here we go. So, well, one of the things that like took me off guard in the beginning is like, it was very. I feel like it was very artistic. Like a lot of the shots were really pretty, like showing like the forest around him and stuff, and it's showing him making that little tart thing in the beginning, you know, and he's like making the dough.
Let's talk about the parts. Like each part of the movie had like a different name. So like one part was like the mushroom tart. What was part 2? I need to look these up. Okay, so there's 3 sections. The first one is the rustic mushroom tart. And if you're taking that seriously, I don't think we can be friends. Because, like, what?
I love
because
it,
you don't have any, like, idea behind the movie gives you no contextual evidence that this man used to be a chef.
No, yeah, and so that is a little, like, weird and confusing, but I love it. I feel like everything is so like artistic. And then even later on, you know, when the kidnapping scene happens, you know, when the door slams open and like it knocks him down and the camera angle changes like as he's falling down. I thought that was cool too. And there's just different like I don't know.
They put him in GoPro mode, man.
They did.
They put him in GoPro mode and they knocked him the F out.
But yeah.
In my notes, I just put, it's kind of like John Wick, but they don't try to kill him. They just want the pig. Okay, so they, like, take a pig, right? By the way, this pig is ginger. This is a ginger pig. This is a hate crime.
I love it. This movie is prejudiced against ginger pigs.
Like, I have never seen a ginger pig like that. Have you?
No, I haven't actually.
I was just bamboozled.
But I mean, you've seen more pigs in your lifetime than me, I think, because you used to live on a farm.
But I think we had different types of pigs, because that one looks like real, like, that one's like very squat and short. We didn't have those. We had like the traditional like farm pigs.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, big and rotund.
Yes. So then, after the ginger pig gets kidnapped, wannabe Shia LaBeouf pulls up in his Transformer freaking car. And I guess he's like Nicolas Cage's like dealer type of guy who like comes and gets the little truffles from him after he forages for them.
Yeah, that was I
didn't really understand like the significance of anything that kid was doing other than he was just like driving him around. In the first part, like I didn't get like what was going on at all. I was just kind of like, why is this kid even here? He doesn't really seem to even like him.
Yeah. And I did put a note in here about that. I was like, why are, you know, Nicolas Cage's character, he goes by Rob at the beginning, but you find out later his name's Robin. But I'm wondering why his truffles are so important that this guy is just like suddenly willing to drive him around the city to find this pig. Like,
well, first they go to the Salty Spittoon, basically. They go to like this diner in the middle of nowhere where I guess all the little Oregon people go to. I don't know. It looked like a little bitty shack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like
and he's
nearby.
Like, where's Rhonda or something? And they're like, she died 10 years ago. And he's like, okay, can I use your phone? Meanwhile, the man looks like a hobo. He's beaten up. He's got blood coming off of him.
And he's like demanding to use their phone. I'd be like, sir, please clean your face first at least.
Oh my gosh. And then he's like, I might know a guy to knock off Shia LaBeouf. Then he meets up with Sir Davos of the Black Bay.
Yeah.
Basically. That's literally what I wrote in my notes. I was like, I think the guy's name in the movie was Edgar, but I refer to him as Sir Davos from now on.
He does look like him.
He literally just gives him some, like, chili cheese fries or something. Like...
And he's like, no, I don't want these. He directly gives them back, which honestly, not me. I would have taken them. I would have been like, free food? Yes.
Obviously. I didn't really understand, you know, where they were going with that. And then all of a sudden, Nicolas Cage is like going into this restaurant, going into like a secret tunnel.
Like he knows it's there, like behind the shelves.
The underworld from a restaurant. What? Hades needed to come climbing up out of there or something.
you mean Liam Neeson? Remember the generic Liam Neeson?
Yes. Generic knockoff Liam Neeson needed to just come crawling up out of there and tell him no. I honestly didn't. Okay, maybe you have a different perspective, but like I didn't understand this whole next scene. Like I didn't understand it.
Are you talking about
I didn't know what
fighting
they were doing. Well, he goes in there, he stares at Sir Davos, then he goes and writes his name on the thing, and then all of a sudden people are just really quiet and they're not talking, and then they're like throwing something at the ground, but I couldn't tell what it was. Do you know what they were like throwing at the ground?
I don't know what it was exactly, but I think it was one of those things of like, at first they see him and they're like, bro, who are you? Like, did some homeless guy just wander in off the street?
This guy is a hobo.
Yeah, they're like, this is a private event. What are you doing here? But then he goes and puts his name on the board, and this is kind of where we don't explicitly find out here, but we find out that he's actually a very famous chef. And so when his name is up there, they're like, oh shit, you know, any of us would, you know, if we don't want to fight him, we want to bet on it. And so I think that's what they're throwing down on the floor is to bet. I don't know what it is exactly, though, that they're throwing on the floor.
Okay, but like, here's the other thing, is they're not even like Nicolas Cage or whatever, or whoever is the person that they're beating, doesn't even fight back.
No.
That's the thing. He stands there with his hands behind his back while they literally just like rail him.
Yeah.
And not in a sexual way.
I know, you said that and I was like, whoa.
Like,
I don't remember that part of the movie.
There is a man in a purple vest and he's like, I'm gonna beat him. And so he just goes up to Nicolas Cage and beats him until he's literally passed out.
I'm wondering if it's just like to see if he can withstand it, or like how long he can withstand the beating, you know, like if he'll tap out or if he'll just accept his fate, you know. I don't know.
This whole like underground thing was super weird and I didn't really get it. Nicolas Cage's chauffeur guy takes him back to his apartment and cooks him breakfast and then talks about his mommy issues with Nicolas Cage, and then Nicolas Cage just like says a bunch of weird random things.
Is that where he talks about the earthquake?
Yeah, he like it's talking about the earthquake. Like this kid is sitting there saying like, my mom killed herself, all this stuff. It's like this deep thing, and then Nicolas Cage is like, we're gonna be underwater when there's an earthquake, so it doesn't matter.
I know, yeah, that part I was like, what the fuck? I don't understand the connection to this.
Maybe I'm not emo enough to understand this movie, but I guess
that's the difference between you and I.
Get it. I did not, like, just a lot of the parts of it just didn't make sense.
Okay, but we have to talk about my favorite part of the movie. Okay, so yes, I guess this is the emo part of me, but I loved the part where he goes to the restaurant. I think it's called Eurydice or something. It's that like upscale restaurant. You know, he gets the kid to like get them a reservation to this place, and
not the little toddler boy that he was talking to about the persimmon tree.
Not that
the
one.
Other his chauffeur,
the little man baby child
that drives the Camaro. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, he gets him like this reservation into this really nice restaurant in town, and he goes there, and it turns out, well, first he goes there and he's like making the waitress really uncomfortable because, I mean, he's like bruised and battered and bleeding from the head and like absolutely filthy, you know, and it almost looks like a hostage situation, like, you know, him sitting there with that kid. And so you can tell like the waitress is like on edge and stuff. And then Nic Cage asks for the chef. He wants to see the chef. And she's like, okay. So she goes and gets him, and he comes out, and the chef is like trying to make conversation with him and stuff. And then, you know, Nic Cage kind of has him sit down, and as they're talking, like the chef realizes who he is, and there's like this moment of it's kind of where I feel like Nic Cage first asserts his authority, you know, I guess besides the underground fight thing, but he's like, remember, you know, you used to work for me, but you only worked for me for like 2 months because you kept overcooking the pasta and I had to fire you. Like, do you remember that? And you know, the chef is kind of like laughing and stuff, and he's like, oh yeah, haha, look at me now, kind of thing. And Nic Cage is like, no, like, I remember you, like, I remember that you used to want to open a pub, right? Like, and you wanted to do this and wanted to do that. Like, what you're doing now is nothing like that. Like, why are you doing this? And the guy is like making up these excuses, you know, and he's got this like really cheesy grin like plastered on his face, but he's like, oh, you know, it's not like a good decision, you know, financially. Like, people don't really like
Investors
pubs.
don't want to invest in that.
Yes, exactly. He's like, it just wasn't a good decision, so I did this instead. And Nic Cage like has this moment with him, and where he's kind of like grilling him, and he's kind of making him squirm and making him face like all of the things that he said he once wanted to do, and he kind of just skipped out on, you know, in order to, you know, make money and make people happy. And I quoted it. My favorite part is when he has this kind of monologue where he's talking at the chef, and the chef is like slowly losing that smile because he's like, he can't hold it together anymore. But Nic Cage says, you live your life for them and they don't even see you. You don't even see yourself. And I was like, oh, whoa. Like, as a lifelong people pleaser, that was like huge for me. I was like, holy shit. And so that
like,
scene,
I feel so seen.
yes, I was like, oh my God, like, you know, he, in this like 5 minutes with the chef, he's like totally dismantling like all of his ideas and, you know, things that he's done with his life, you know, but in like it's almost like it's destructive, but it's positive, you know, type of thing. Like, he's tearing.
It's like, in my notes, I put that Nicolas Cage was psychologically hurting the chef, but to help him.
Yeah, it's
That's
almost like constructive criticism, kind of, but like I think more extreme, because he really like seemed to rock this guy's world. Like,
This guy was like, just, he looks like he lost control of his bowels.
yeah, like he literally,
like, he was so profoundly affected by something that like his hero is telling him.
yeah, and it's something that like you would think he wouldn't even care because he is moved on with his life, and he is, by all, you know, means, he is successful, but it's kind of like Nic Cage said, like, he had given up all of those things he really wanted to do just to make money and just to make people happy. And you know, realize that was like one of the big reasons that, you know, he left, that the Nic Cage character left this industry, is because once he lost everything, and that's another thing, is you find out that his wife died, and that's what kind of made him lose it. And after that, I think he just started to realize, like, I already lost the thing that means the most in the world to me. Like, why am I, you know,
like, why keep trying?
Yeah, and why keep just like doing what everyone else wants me to do, you know, when I could just go be alone and do whatever I want, kind of thing. But yeah, that was definitely my favorite part of the movie.
I did like that part. I think that was my favorite, like one of my favorite parts. That was not ironically my favorite part, type of thing, obviously.
But yeah, I guess other than that, like that part was really big to me. But I loved the cooking scenes and stuff. I love that scene where he's cooking the meal for the kid and the kid's dad. You know, the one that's been driving him around and stuff. Just like all of the delicate like thought and intention that goes into the cooking, and it shows him, he's like teaching this kid how to do all of the steps instead of just like doing it for him, which he obviously could because he's really good at what he does. But he's taking the time to show him because he sees how this kid is kind of like lost in the world. Like his dad's not very nice to him and not very supportive, and his mom is not there, you know, and so he's just trying to take that time with him.
Well, and you also find out that like his driver kid guy is the son of a guy who's, I guess, like pretty high up in the restauranteering of Portland, which is where this is based around. And you find out that like in that morning, whenever he was the kid was making him breakfast and saying like sharing all these things, he was like, you know, you cooked a meal for my parents once and I've never seen them like be happier, type of a thing. So like that's the reason why they cooked that meal.
Yeah. And I thought that was so special too, like
it's like a memory.
Yeah, and that was my last note that I put too, I think, is I said, I wish all food could be like this, you know, food that makes you feel and creates memories, because, you know, he makes this meal for the dad and the son and stuff, and the dad sits down, and at first you can tell, like, he doesn't necessarily recognize the food or, like, whatever, you know, he takes a bite and stuff, but then it's when he takes a sip of that wine, because it's the same exact wine that they drank that night, and apparently they drank a lot of it. The kid said that his parents were, like, really drunk. But he takes a sip of the wine, and he's just overcome with emotion, and to see, like, you don't see it very often, I feel like, especially with men like this guy who act very tough and, you know, like they're better than everybody else and stuff. Like you see this emotion like break through, and you hear like a little sob like break out of him, you know, because he can't hold in the emotion from that memory. Like it meant so much to him to be able to have that recreated in front of him.
Exactly. Also, can we address the fact that he looked like knockoff George Clooney?
He did, and he almost kind of looked like Paul Hollywood to me.
Oh, if Paul Hollywood and George Clooney had a baby.
Yeah, exactly.
His eyes weren't blue enough to be Paul Hollywood's child, though, so
yeah, no. But I think it was the hair. That's what got me.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, he definitely has that hair, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, I really liked it, and I know that there's a lot of it that wasn't like completely spelled out, you know, and parts of it they're weird, and honestly, like the plot of it, like okay, his pig gets kidnapped. Oh, and obviously we got to go back to that.
Oh yeah,
he does find out that the pig died. That was so sad. Like the dad admits to being the one that like did
kidnapped. He ordered the kidnapping of the pig.
Yes, yeah, he ordered the kidnapping. The people that he hired to kidnap the pig were on drugs, and they were too rough with the pig, and it ended up dying. And you could tell that he really does feel bad about it. He's like, I didn't mean for this to happen. I was prepared to compensate you, like, with money. But
which is what he tries to do.
Mm-hmm.
He, like, tried to do that initially.
But and then you find out by the end of the movie, like, that Nic Cage, I mean, that was after his wife died, that pig was, like, the only thing that he cared about. And so it was, like, no amount of money was going to make that better for him. But I mean, yeah, it is what it is. And I think the end is where they do offer, they're like, okay, like we'll get you another pig. Like, I know it's not the same thing, but it's better than nothing, right? And yeah, he's just prepared to go back and live in his shack in the woods. But yeah, so that is the movie Pig. And I personally would give this movie 9 flying pigs out of 10.
Okay, but would you pay money to go and see it in a movie theater?
Well, that's hard because it's like if I
See,
don't know
that's
anything
the
about
true
it.
Test. That's the true test.
To be honest, though, there's not many movies that I would pay to go see in person. I mainly wait until they are available to rent, and I do it from the comfort of my own home.
That's true, but like I'm saying, in a situation where you had seen a commercial of some type, form, or shape, and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to go and I need to watch this in a movie theater. I need to recline. I need to dine.
Only if
and
it
I need
was
to watch.
a recline and dine. I love that.
Like,
yeah.
would you pay money to be there?
If it was like a weekend matinee like type of deal. Not like on a
Okay.
yeah.
See, I would never pay for this movie. There's a reason why I went to Hulu.
Well, how many out of 10 would you give it?
I'd give it two truffles out of 10.
Oh my god, that makes me so sad. All
You're
right.
just sad because the movie was emo.
All right. I get it. Our brains are not alike. Okay. All right, let's move on to our last movie, which is the worst movie. It is Left Behind. It came out in 2014. It received a 0% by critics and an 8% by audience.
It was that bad, folks.
It was justified. I will say this though, like, I know that you didn't watch this movie with me, but for our very first episode, we did Brad Pitt, and his worst movie was Cool World, which got a 4% by critics, and it deserved a 0%. I think
really?
that
Like,
oh god, it was so bad. It was so bad.
Like, was it hard to watch?
Yes, it
like,
was
cringy or.
It was, yes. And it was, well, the thing is, it was one of those movies, like, I don't know if you ever saw Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but it was one of those half animated, half real.
Like Space Jam, but like in the worst way?
Yes. But it was like really like raunchy and none of it made sense. And there was like violence and it was just, it was like if someone did acid and like had a really bad trip, but Brad Pitt was the only thing there to like kind of keep you sane. Like it was really, really bad.
He was like your spirit guide.
Yeah, very confusing spirit guide.
Oh my gosh, that is horrible.
But yeah, I feel like these two movies should switch critic ratings because that one.
Which one was
deserved
worse
0.
though? Like I haven't seen the one you're talking about, so I can't like
it was worse.
form an opinion.
Yes,
it was like you would rather sit there and watch Left Behind.
Yeah, I'd watch the Left Behind like 100 times before I would watch Cool World ever again.
That speaks volumes.
It should, yes.
Oh my gosh. Well, let's get into it.
Yeah, okay. So this
gosh.
movie, Left Behind. So this movie is about a small group of survivors who are left behind after millions of people suddenly vanish and the world is plunged into chaos and destruction. Yeah, it was and you find out that very quickly that this is a religious movie, and that all these people that disappeared were called up into the rapture. And I just love that in this movie they don't really want to come out and explicitly say that it's a religious movie or like that this is the rapture that's happening, but they just try to throw religion into your face at every chance they get, you know, whether it's people saying stuff.
Oh, it's from like the first like few scenes too.
Yeah, like the lady in the airport who stops Chad Michael Murray and she's like, oh my god, everybody deserves all this horrible things that are happening because we're so wicked. After, what does she say, like after the first sin, which god, that shit.
You can tell she voted Republican.
Oh yeah, like absolutely unreal. Like that she has to stop this journalist in the middle of the
also
airport.
why would a journalist be like so famous that you're stopping a journalist? Like, excuse me.
He should have a team.
I don't know any like type of journalist that I would be stopping at an airport to be like, excuse me, sir, let me have you sign my forehead.
Right, and then even
which is what people were doing. Like, they're falling over themselves.
Yeah.
Maybe because they thought it was Chad Michael Murray.
They were like, this isn't a reporter. I'd know him anywhere. And I hate that they're, like, off the rip. Like, they just constantly have this weird sentimental music playing underneath all the dialogue. It's like the type of music you would hear like on a daytime soap or something like that. It was just really bizarre. Like, they're just having a normal conversation and you're hearing this like heartfelt piano underneath it. I'm like, what? This does not match.
You're just like, this doesn't really feel like it's meshing well. Like, somebody either needed to turn that audio off or turn it down.
Right?
Because
like,
that wasn't it, sis.
And some scenes don't need to have music underneath them. Like, why they felt the need to constantly have that same music, I don't know.
It's uplifting.
That's what they think.
That's like the only thing I can think is that they're like, we're doing it for the ambiance. Like, you just know somebody's there with like their little switchboard and they're like, I got this, guys.
Oh yeah, and they have like their little beret on sideways, you know, and they're like, I know about real film.
Oh my gosh, that's true.
It's just so bad. And yeah, so Nic Cage is the dad, and it's weird. It's kind of nebulous on whether he's supposed to be the main character or if the daughter is. But very early on, you find out this daughter, you know, she's coming home to visit her family and stuff. She's, you know, on break from school or something. And she's supposed to be meeting her dad, who is a pilot, who is Nicolas Cage. But you find out that he has decided to run off to go take this flight instead of be with his family because he's has plans to boink with the stewardess. And
wasn't it like she flew home for his like surprise birthday party or something?
Yeah, it was his birthday, and he was like, "Nope, I have more urgent business to be on." But the daughter,
urgent business is boinking.
And
okay, listen. He only had 10 days to film. Okay, and he freaking fulfilled that role.
Yeah, and when you told me that, I thought you meant like they only filmed this movie in 10 days, and I was like, believable. I definitely believe
he
that.
got paid a whopping $3 million for his role in this movie, and he filmed all of his scenes in 10 days.
That's
10.
just wild to me. I
he
mean,
could buy a lot of homes for that much. $300,000 a day? You're joking.
And he did, apparently.
And he did, and then
they were
he
all
didn't really
foreclosed on.
finish paying on them. Okay? It's fine. It's fine.
But yeah, so this daughter, she finds out that the dad didn't like have to be on this flight, that he actually was going to London to see U2 of all bands. Oh my god. He got tickets to go see U2 with this stewardess. Yikes.
He was like the definition of like, girl, I'm not gonna do it. Girl, I did it.
And apparently you find out that like his wife is ultra religious all of the sudden, like she never really was and now she is, and it's like he acts like, oh, she drove me away with all of her religion. I just had to go fuck someone else because I couldn't stand
Jesus.
it.
She found Jesus, okay?
He's
It's
like,
fine.
I found Jesus, but inside of someone else. But
Definitely found something there. I don't know.
Probably more like a STD, but you know.
But the cheeks were clapping, okay?
Oh god. And Chad Michael Murray catches
Of
this.
course.
He's got to be witness to all of this because he's a journalist. And so he sees all this happen.
He's a famous journalist, okay?
Yeah, he's got to be
Get it
on the
right.
scene of everyone's lives, everyday life.
So weird. Okay.
But he witnesses, so he meets this daughter in the airport as she's waiting for Nic Cage, and they bond, and, you know, of course, there's sentimental music, and then he finds out about the tickets, and then he's like, oh, well, coincidence, I'm about to go get on the same plane with your dad. Okay. Well, they get on the plane together, and it is during the middle of this plane ride that everybody just
The rapture.
straight up disappears. And what kills me is that at this time, while, you know, this is all happening, the daughter is at the mall with her little brother, and she just so happens to be like hugging him. And it just so happens that as she's hugging him, the rapture happens and he just disappears. And it's so funny because she's like holding him, and then all of a sudden, like, his clothes are just in her arms, but they're still upright. Like, they have like a bunch of starch in them or something. Like, they're just still like, I think there's even a hat too, and the hat is still sitting.
That was like just sitting there with the iron, like, I'm gonna make this scene. Oh my gosh.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I remember it being like, why are his clothes so straight?
It killed me. Like, what the heck? And so everyone's freaking out, and what I love too is that on this plane ride, most of the people are still on the plane. So there were not very many righteous people traveling to London on this plane at this time.
Obviously.
And, you know, one being Chad Michael Murray is there on this plane, which I want to know what he did that was so bad, because he, from what we know about him, he was like I said, in impoverished countries and like helping people and stuff. So I don't know why he got left behind. Maybe because
he was playing the sinner. Okay, he was a sinner.
Well, and I guess he did kind of like come out and say like that he doesn't really believe in God. So I guess that's probably part of it too.
I think that's one of the things is like you denouncing like the existence. Like, you're cut off, babes. No trust fund for you.
Like, it's not even good enough that you were a good person, like, because you don't believe in the Christian God, then fuck you. Because there's even
then there's a Muslim guy on the plane, and they're like, you don't get to go to heaven. You don't believe in what we believe in. You don't believe in Christian Jesus. And like, what?
I know, because he even says, like, because everyone's freaking out on this plane, and he's trying to calm people down, and he's like, well, why don't we all, like, get together and pray? Like, that might help us feel better. And they're like, fuck you. Like, who are you talking about praying? So most of the action is going on up in this plane. And, you know, Nic Cage is trying to
they're showing us is going on. We don't know what else is going on in the world.
Yeah, all it's showing
could be happening.
Yeah, you know there's got to be some crazy shit happening, but all it's showing is Nic Cage and him trying to figure out how to land this plane or figure out what happened to all these people, and then the daughter is she's just wandering aimlessly, which kills me. I think that part just baffled me the most out of this movie, because she discovers like her brother's gone and her mom is gone, but she keeps wandering the streets just yelling for her brother, and I'm like, bro, he was in your arms and then he was gone. Like, what do you think is gonna happen?
Into a stick figure, basically.
Like, no amount of walking around and calling his name is gonna make him come back, honey.
Well, also, like, they kind of allude to the fact that children are all innocent, right?
Yes,
So they allude to this. So, like, she's walking around, she doesn't see any kids, and she just doesn't, like, see that as, like, a red flag. Like,
yes.
Oh, there's no kids at all.
And I love that she goes, so in her pursuit to find, like, her brother, she happens to, like, wander into a church, and there happens to, like, be a preacher there, and you're like, wait a second, this is the rapture, why is he still there? And it's just so very convenient that there was someone left behind to explain everything to her, because he tells her, like, his reason for why he, like, didn't get called up into the arms of God is because he was showing up and preaching every day, but he didn't really believe the words he was preaching. And I was like, bro, what? Like, then why? Like, why were you still a preacher? Like, you could have just been, like, you know, in attendance. Why were you preaching if you didn't believe it? Like, I just think it was very convenient that he was still on Earth in order to explain the plot to her.
He was literally just there for context.
Exactly.
He's a context character.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, the rest of this dumb freaking movie is just about Nic Cage trying to figure out how to land this plane because a bunch of tragedies keep happening, and he...
Well, and all, like, the lines of communication end, because, like, some of the people that are working, like, these specific jobs, like, you know, air traffic control and all these things,
Mm-hmm.
like,
They
they
just
probably disappeared. I don't know. Maybe they believed in Christian Jesus.
That, or they just went, like, running for their lives. They went, you know, wandering the streets,
Yeah,
calling
or
for
they
their
were
little
so
brothers.
freaked out.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Chloe's so the main character is named Chloe.
Mhm.
All of a sudden, don't worry, they get cell service. So her dad calls her cell phone from his airplane.
Inconvenient that
He
she's
didn't-
able to reach.
He did not have it on airplane mode. That's a federal offense.
Who cares if you're a pilot? You can't do that shit, bro.
He's gonna get citations
From
or
who?
something. I don't know.
They're
I don't know
all
how this works.
gone. They're gone.
Oh, my favorite part was like all these people on this airplane disappear, right? And so you're like, okay, whatever. So what do the passengers do when they're on an airplane? They try to storm the cockpit.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go attack the pilot so he can tell us what's going on. And he's like repeatedly said, like, we don't know what's going on.
You're like,
We're
please
probably
stay in
gonna
your
just
seat.
turn around.
Yeah.
Stay in your seats. And then he pops down the oxygen masks, and everybody's like, oh shit, this
They're
got
like-
real.
We must sit down.
Like, I just thought that was so funny that they're like all like gung ho about storming the cockpit of the pilot. Like, the only person who knows how to fly this plane.
Yeah, that can get you
I
home
don't know.
safely, but you're gonna try and mutiny and attack him? Like, what is happening?
It was just so bizarre. And then this one lady is like doing heroin or something on the airplane, and she's like, oh my gosh, I know what's happening. And Chad Michael Murray has got that camera up in her face, and he's like, tell me what you're experiencing. And she's like, I can't, and runs away.
And she's like, that's another thing too that was wild to me, because so you see her go into the bathroom and stuff, and she's talking to herself, and she's like, it's just a bad trip, it's just a bad trip. And you're like, okay. And she takes out her lipstick and she rolls it up, but it's hollowed out, and there's a little baggie of what they're alluding to is drugs in there. And you're like, okay. And she's like, it's okay, everything's gonna be okay. And then it like cuts to black, and then it shows her like sitting in her chair, and she's like kind of like nodding off and stuff. And Chad Michael Murray goes to like check on her or something like that, and he sees like the track marks in her arm, and I'm like, wait a second, like there's no way she could have shot up in this bathroom. Like, she had to have snorted it. Like, that part was like a weird inconsistency to me, because I was like, she would not be able to do that. There's no way she could sneak that plus the needles on board. They were just so hell-bent
to assume that they knew how drugs worked.
I know. I was like, they just wanted to push the drug angle, like, very badly.
Yeah, they were just
in this
really
movie.
they were pushing for the drug angle.
Every different type of sin that they could push, they wanted to put that in your face. But yeah, so all of this is happening. Nic Cage has these things happen to the plane, and he's got to try and land it safely. And lo and behold, his daughter...
They're running out of fuel. They're running out of fuel.
Yes.
I think.
They
And, like, the airports are closed or something. I don't know.
There's, like, a whole bunch of traffic. Like, the runways are crowded and stuff. And so his daughter somehow figures out a way to freaking makeshift a runway out of, like, this highway that's being built or something. She, like, clears debris from the road, decides to set something on fire to use that as a signal for him on how to land. I'm just like, what? Like, there are so many directions you could have gone with this movie, and why is this where you decided to end things on?
Also, it's 2014. Find her location, bro.
Yeah, like, you're already using each other's phones, like...
You're already using your, like, weird, not Apple phone. Let me just tell you
Apple,
how
not
funny
Apple.
his phone looked. When he's, like, calling her, it's very, like, her picture, and then, you know, hang up or like, end call.
Yeah.
It's very, very cute.
Oh, God. It was just so freaking... It was a mess. But they land, and they get reunited, and I love how when they land, like, the Chloe girl is, like, seems more excited to be reunited with Chad Michael Murray at first. Like, she runs and, like, embraces him, even though they just met at the beginning of this movie. And then
Literally
she goes and hugs her
earlier
dad.
in the day. They literally met that day.
Yeah, she's already formed this extreme connection to him. And then she goes to her dad and, like, yeah, they hug, but it doesn't hold near as much emotion as the hug did with Chad Michael Murray.
Well, I mean, her dad was kind of a POS, and she knew it.
That's true. She caught him at a lie for sure.
She caught him.
But yeah, that was that movie. I really did not have much to say about it because it was just...
There was not
ass.
much else that happened, honestly. Like, it was just so bad.
Yeah. And it was like, yeah, it was a freaking... Let's see, what was the runtime? It was almost a 2-hour movie, and yet it could have been summed up in an hour. Like, with the chain of events that happened, could have easily been summed up in 45 minutes to an hour. It was just... It was too much.
There was a lot of, like, just weird choices they made there.
So I would give this dumb movie 1 stick figure out of 10.
I'd give it one pair of starchy clothes
I love it.
out of 10.
That'll be the part
Like-
that I'll remember about that movie forever.
Just what? I don't get it, dude.
All right, and that is our episode on the wonderful Nicolas Cage. Thank you for joining me today, Savannah. That was wonderful.
Of
I had such a good
course.
time. Thank you for making it.
Of course.
All right.
He's an icon.
All right, well, we are going to go ahead and drop our socials and close out the episode. We have a Facebook page at Good Movie Hunting or at GMH Podcast, Twitter at GMH Pod, Instagram at GMH Podcast. Our email is goodmoviehuntingpod@gmail.com, and our YouTube is Good Movie Hunting Podcast. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we will talk to y'all next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Pictures up, class, please.
Parker? What's on your mind?
I've thought about this all night. Whether what I'm about to do is the right thing or not.
Let me go in and talk to him alone, Dr. Mallory.
I did so only because he was working along lines contrary to the good of mankind.
Well, Rangers, looks as though Agents Mackenzie and Hopkins are going to have to get to that hacienda and get there mighty fast.
Crush all opposition.